If I could have your attention. Carla, would you please call roll?
Mark Arnold.
Here.
Whitney Hall.
Here.
Marvin Kusick.
Here.
Eddie Mack.
Here.
David Mason.
Here.
Cole Reen.
Here.
Don Roberts.
Here.
James Simonek. David Trojan.
Here.
Jonathan Waddell.
Here.
That's a quorum.
We have a quorum. I hereby call the August meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission to order. First item of business is to consider approval of the minutes of the regular Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting of July 16, 2018. You've had a chance to look at those. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as printed. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that motion carries. Next item of business is zoning. Consider a rezoning for property described as lots 1 and 2, Block 13, Rock Island Heights Edition, and lots 6 through 10, Block 17, Southern Heights Edition, Second Edition, located at 301 East Iowa from R2 Residential Single Family District to R7 Residential Multifamily District. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commissioners, the property we're considering is on the slide outlined in the yellow box. Currently is zoned R2, single family. There's existing buildings on the property, and the use that Forgotten Ministries wants to apply at this facility is transitional housing for women that are coming out of prison, transitioning into life and society. As we do with all rezonings, we look at the infrastructure surrounding it, that being roads, water, and sewer. And we had our engineering department analyze this. All of those infrastructure items are appropriate and adequate for the proposed rezoning use. This is transitional housing. When we do R7 zoning, it is incumbent that we notify everybody within 300 feet. As far as the city of Enid, we did that. In addition, the applicant has the burden of notifying everybody within a quarter of a mile of the property, and they certified that they did that as well. So all of the notifications have been complied with. We have the infrastructure in place to do the rezoning. Are there any questions for staff?
Is there any negative replies or positive replies? Did you get any feedback in terms of?
We got some phone calls. We never got a formal petition against it, Commissioner, but we did have a phone call today. We had a couple last week, and we had some people come by the office and ask questions, and I gave them the details that I just gave you. Forgotten Ministries is here. If you would like to hear from them, I'll be quiet. Anything else for staff?
They're going to use that facility. They're not adding on to it or.
It's my understanding they're using that facility, but why don't I have Jeremiah answer that question for you? He's here. Jeremiah?
Yes, sir. So we are in the process of renovating it, and we can fit about 12 to 13 ladies inside the structure as it is, because it was like an old fellowship hall for the church that was next to it. So it's got like a big dining room area that would be like a classroom where the ladies would have like an area to eat dinner and different things, and then they have their individual rooms. And so some of the rooms are actually big enough where we could fit 2 ladies in the housing for them. The program will be ran similar to the one that we run down the street about 3 blocks north. It's called the Oasis program. We can house about 24 guys in there. And so the program's a 6-month program that helps them get a job, has accountability where there's curfews. They have to attend certain classes, addiction classes, to kind of help them get on their feet. And the hope is as they make it through the program is that they're able to kind of turn key and then get on their own feet, get a house or an apartment and kind of get going. And so we've had almost 100% turnaround or with guys that graduated the program. I think 19 out of 20, all of those guys have stayed out of prison and have got their jobs and have got raises and are doing good. So we've only had one guy that's kind of fell off the wagon and went back to prison. So.
What type of offenders are we looking at?
So it's not just, so there will be no sex offenders and no violent crime offenders. We work with mainly the facilities around Enid that deal with more drug abuse. And so it's not just for offenders too, it'll also be for those that are transitioning off the streets. So the homeless shelter that we have, the Mercy House, Kind of the challenge is because we're only open 6 months of the year through the extreme weather conditions, and when we shut down, a lot of the women revert to a form of prostitution to keep themselves off the street so that they're, living in places they shouldn't. And so part of that goal is to also help people that come through our homeless shelter to offer a long-term solution for them to get off the streets.
What was this, what did you say this building was formerly used as?
It was like a fellowship hall for the church next door to it.
How long has it been vacant or unused for any?
I would say, yeah, it was pretty rough condition when we got a hold of it. And it's going to be brand new from the bottom up almost when we get done with it. It looks really good. You got to go out and see it.
I wish I could have went by there. I didn't get a chance today, so.
What is the maximum concentration of residents in R7? How does that sort of make?
This will be a boarding house, and there's no maximum per ordinance.
Pursuant to the R7, there's no.
In R7, a boarding house is allowed, and there's no maximum.
Now, we only have so many bedrooms, so we're only going to be able to go up to a certain number because of the space that we have. And there'll be a house mom that lives on site full-time. She lived there, and she takes care of the program just like our men do in another program. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Chairman, we do have some people signed up to speak on this item.
Okay.
The first speaker is
Muriel.
Muriel Allen. Muriel Allen.
When you step up to the microphone, please restate
Okay.
your name.
Muriel Allen,
Okay.
And your address, please.
1000 Northwest 88th, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, apartment G1.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I am a native from Oklahoma, from Enid, Oklahoma. I do own property down in the Southern Heights area. I did receive a letter about this rezoning. I didn't understand how it would benefit our community for the future. I admire what this ministry is trying to do. I'm not against rehabilitation at all, but I think there is a proper area and a proper place for the rehabilitation to take place. This is a community that is on the verge of rebuilding. It used to be a drug-infested community, which has now been cleaned up by the city of Enid. The gangs and all of that has been cleaned up. Southern Heights is a very beautiful area. I have a problem with seeing prisoners come in, whether they're women, men, or just people coming off the streets, and maintain a peaceful environment for the near future. If I can understand how this will benefit our community, maybe I could understand why I would go along with it. But at this point in time, I am against it because I am from down there, and I can see in the future what this would cause. It would reinvent the drug activity that has been there. It will cause these women to need connection with the outside world, which they will get down there, So it has been considered one of the historical areas of Enid, down at the county assessor's office, because I've been down there several times. And I don't know what the plans for the future is for Southern Heights, but I honestly believe great things is going to come through there. I'm, for one, just want to bring great things through there when I get ready to retire on my property eventually, and then rezoning it in a commercial area. But if we bring something like this in there, this is not going to help us. This is not going to benefit our housing. I just want to know how this will benefit us.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Valentine Latorre. Alvatore, excuse me. I'm sorry, didn't say that correctly.
Again, sir, please state your name and your address.
Name's Valentine Alatorre, address 302 East Ohio. I'm a bad speaker, excuse me. So I just wanted to oppose this to be rezoned, this 301 East Iowa. I'm representing myself, my wife, and my 3 children that live directly next to the opposed, the soon-to-be, or try to be rezoned transitional housing. The reason I oppose it, I just feel like it's gonna bring the quality of life for my children, not improve it. And it's something that I would not like to my children to see. I again agree with the lady that just spoke. I'm for it. I'm not against it. I don't think it's the right area for that to be at. There's plenty of places around Enid. It's not consistent in that neighborhood. There's no Zone 7. And one thing I have been thinking about is that the bill 780 passed, which sooner, I think already passed, will nonviolent offenders that are drug offenders will not go to prison anymore unless they're drug dealers or something like that. So meaning that people that are leaving the prison sooner or later will be violent offenders. Does that make sense? So being nonviolent offenders, as of right now, until those people leave the prison system, eventually everybody leaving the prison system will be violent offenders of some sort, not drug offenders. So that statement it's an old statement. It's not gonna happen. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Thank you.
LaDonna Ware?
Hello, my name is LaDonna Ware, and I live at 217 East Ohio. You can almost see my little house in this picture. I am just down the street on Ohio, about a block from this facility, and I oppose it also. I have 3 young children. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter, a 9-year-old grandson, and an 8-year-old grandson. I oppose it because they will not be able to run freely in their community as they do right now. They're up and down the streets. Like Valentino said, his children are directly behind this building. Right now, we don't have fences around our buildings, our houses, so that anyone that comes into this facility will have access to our homes. This isn't a concern for us on Ohio Street. Another thing is with the state of Oklahoma doing away with a lot of facilities for the mental institution, we know that those people are going to prisons. And we know that once they get out, they also will need homes. We're afraid that they will also be considered into this transition. So therefore, we will have a lot of people that have mental issues coming into our facility, into this facility. So again, my name is LaDonna Ware, and I oppose it.
Thank you. Sharita Alatorre?
Say your name right.
Yes, Shrita.
Good. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Shrita Alatorre. I am Valentine Alatorre's wife. We do have 3 kids. They're 2, 7, and 10. And I think it's amazing what he's doing. It's just like they said, it's just the wrong place to have it. My daughter is adorable. She's very, very social. And it terrifies me to know that she can literally walk in the backyard and like talk to some random, it's terrifying just in Walmart, nevertheless, to know that these people are convicted of a crime and really not know what they're doing. I just feel like, like they said, it should just be somewhere else. And we've done a lot of renovations to our house. We really thought that this neighborhood was going to be our home. We've spent thousands of dollars on building our house, and we thought it would be a future, but knowing that something like that is going to be behind our house, it doesn't look like it's going to be much of a future. I was raised in that neighborhood. I was there when there was drugs on the street, and to see it evolve how it has, and now it's going to, it seems like it could revert back to what it was, terrifies me. And that's it.
You.
Barbara Finley.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Finley, and I reside at 401 East Indiana here in Enid, Oklahoma. And so this facility is probably 2.5 blocks from my home. I would like to say that I have been one of the people in the community who have invested a lot in the community. And as I was speaking earlier, I have lots of drive-bys by my house. I also have lots of walking people in the neighborhood and find myself sometime giving lots of directions to where people would go. I am also a property owner in other areas here in Enid, and one of them happens to be by a facility that houses the males. And I would have to say, as owning that property, I get a lot of resistance to renting my property because they don't want to be next to prisoners, prisoners just about to be released. And they don't have a really bad record, very many of them walking off. And I also try to use it as a benefit that, you know, they got all the security in the world there. But they were there when I bought my property. And so I try to use it as a positive that if you're renting in my place, they got security 24 hours, okay? But I don't know what kind of security would be in this facility, but it really is a community that has mostly homes that have been owned. It's not really a rental village where there's a lot of rental houses. But I do have to say, I do deal with the people walking up and down the street. And of course, I've owned since the 60s in that community, so I've seen a lot of things, and I've also seen the demolition of that environment. And I've had to deal with, on many levels, the problems of trying to improve your property and try to make it better and try to get zoning assistance. But I do have to speak and say many people are turned away at the door, that the zone doesn't allow you to do whatever it is you want to do there. And I have to speak too that at my own property at 401, and I own the property across that street and the one next to it, the one across the street and all, and I cannot park any of my cars. Even if I'm working on my house and I just need some parking for a few minutes, I cannot park on my own property. So I am concerned that zoning allowances are being made, but yet when we come up, and I know you people don't like racial things to come up, but every black person that I know that wanted to do something, they were not encouraged to change the zoning. And they're not encouraged to be able to use their land that would be of benefit to them. And you guys know it better than I do. All of the rules that have come in, that you can't have the horse, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't put two lots together. All of this has occurred in this city and not too long ago. That you can't do anything to put something together to make it better. We have to put up this same sign that we're responding to if you want to move in a trailer on your property, and all kinds of restrictions are out there. And so I'm just looking at it as that philosopher that I am about what is happening to my community and how will my community look in the future. And I do still have to, on my street, walking down the street, I have to go out there almost quite frequently, I would say, picking up the cans, picking up whatever was thrown out of the cars, and cleaning up outside of my house. And it's in the middle of the street that I'm out there cleaning up. And so I am concerned that my facility will turn from homeowners to everything else but homeowners. And so for that reason, and then too, I don't see, most of the time when we're trying to do things in our city, we're talking about what kind of jobs does it bring or whatever. Who is getting the jobs out of this? Does it really help people of color? that's living in there or those that want to come back to this area. So is this zoning going to be of any benefit other than to take away the private home ownership? And right now, it's mostly ownership, many of them women. And they have been most delighted for things that have been cleared up, but they certainly don't want to see anything else introduced into it that takes away from the home ownership, the beauty that we're trying to add to our community, and our future hopes that there's some kind of cooperation that everybody in our community could bring something to the table that would make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Skip Kelly?
Good evening to the Honorable Council. I was a little bit taken in reference to the correspondence that I received. In reference to this, I received 6 letters, and I don't know whether or not somebody just liked me that much that they wanted to make sure that I got notice of this, but I am from Enid, Oklahoma. I was born and raised here, and I have a great deal of knowledge in reference to the geographical area. My dad patrolled that area for 25 years. I was born the day that he went on the police department for the city of Enid, Oklahoma. This project that they referenced to, the last home that my mother, that we purchased for her to live in, is literally 1 block at 3rd and Ohio. And I was not for sure the location when I received the letters, and so today I had to come for business, and I decided to come to the city and talk to Mr. Bauer, and he showed me the screen, and I kept saying, there's no church there. And mistakenly, I decided to drive the area, and I drove down there, and I go, oh my God. First of all, the sanctity of the grounds of a church that every last one of us that grew up here in Enid knew well, the Indian church. But to think that you would take the church grounds and change it into a transitional home for people coming out of prison, or I just find it kind of touching. And my other concern is that literally a block and a half from this location, there is a school that is presently used for a daycare. And there's a reason why our legislatures took such great concern in reference to where you can put and where you can't put. There is a concern as to how far you can be from a school in reference to a liquor store. There is a reason for that in their eyes, and I believe they're right. And just as they have the distance marks for other activities as it relates to a daycare, a school, or a religious institution. And so eloquently stated by Ms. Allen, there has been, I know, a picture in the minds of many that the Southern Heights addition, for the most part, is worthless because of the lack of what? The lack of new housing, the lack of commercial projects, the lack of new movement. And that's because there was a period of time through a transition of various activities that caused a lot of people to exit the area. But the one thing about land, it has the same face every day. It don't look no prettier and it don't look no uglier. It's all about what you make it. And these people whose hearts and whose lives and whose children and whose labor have still committed to be in the Southern Heights edition is showing that there is hope, there is faith, there is desire, and they want it to be just like it could be anyplace else. And I think that's what's becoming in reference to the changing of the face of the landscape of Southern Heights Edition. We have a historical monument that you won't find in too many cities in the state of Oklahoma and probably throughout the United States. Enid has maintained the 2 African-American schools that are just not empty buildings. Thanks to the leadership of this city and thanks to the hearts of the community, Booker T. Washington School still stands, still being actively used for several purposes for the community. The Carver Elementary School still stands and still being used as an educational instrument for the benefit of children. And I think these are the type of projects that this community wants to see continue to grow and will grow. I came up here today for a lady in reference to 5 lots. She wants to donate to someone that is going to build because she can't come back. But she is so concerned about the development and the redevelopment of Southern Heights Edition. I too am one of those individuals. And so on behalf of myself, and I had received several calls from other citizens, I am against this. As a defense attorney for over 30 years, I have fought and have tried to work with every type of program that is imaginable to keep individuals from going to prison in reference to drug offenses, in reference to, nonviolent offenses. I'm a part of a family who has been part of a nonprofit organization for 49 years, my wife. So I know what it's like. And I know that everyone has and deserves a second chance. And there is no room to turn your back on anyone who is down and out. But I would just like to say that there is a place, and there's plenty places, but to nest it in the back door of some of these residents who have built and put all of their heart and their labor, and in spite of some of the conditions that they have seen change, they continue to stay steadfast as property owners in that area. And their property should not be devalued to any degree. She has property to be rented and to be leased. It should not be a challenge to her because this new project has come in that is not going to increase the value of a residential home. It's just not. And I think that there would have been a better presentation if this would have been brought to the community as a whole. It wouldn't have taken too much to say, let's have a community meeting to the owners, to the project developers, to the community. You have a school, you could have had a meeting right there. You could have listened to the concerns. You could have probably looked at other projects, looked at other geographical areas. And I thought that would have been a better way of really educating everyone about it. And there probably would have been 20 more people here today. But most people are afraid to come to these type of settings, and everybody can't speak, but they have concern. And I would ask this council to take that as part of your concern as you go forward with this. Thank you.
That's all of the people signed up.
Commissioners, do we want to readdress any of this?
See if Jeremiah can maybe address some of
Okay.
it.
So I got to apologize, I wasn't quite prepared for all that. I thought that was the next meeting. But I obviously appreciate all of you guys standing up here today and talking about your concerns. We actually had the same type of kind of pushback when we went forward with the men's transitional housing, and several of the neighbors were obviously concerned about the ideal of moving guys that are ex-cons into the neighborhood. And the reality is that ex-cons live in the neighborhood, and they live in the west side and the north side and the south side and the east side. These are free people that have got out of jail. They are no longer, a lot of them aren't on probation. They can live anywhere they want. But the problem is Oklahoma is the third largest in the United States in women that are incarcerated. And 97% of men and women within the first 3 years end up back in prison because of a lack of options of somewhere where them to go to get the help that they need to turn key on their life. And so the program, safety is a big, major concern for me, and I told that to everyone that came to the first meeting. I said, safety is something that we are so big on, whether it's security cameras, whether it's people living in the housing. We interview every person that comes into the program, and actually people that live in the Southern Heights neighborhood are on that interview board to help interview the people that are coming potentially into their neighborhood. We have now people that were skeptical. They're part of the ministry that help mentor, they help teach classes, they help disciple the guys. And so at the other end, people have started to embrace that ministry because they're seeing the effect on how it can impact the Southern Heights neighborhood, because those guys are now out in the Southern Heights neighborhood and they're painting elderly people's homes. They're picking up their trash. The city calls the Oasis program and they says, hey, we've got fines that are going out to this elderly lady or to this man. Can you guys get out there and help them get their things picked up? And so the guys are working in the neighborhood, helping those that are less fortunate and those that need help. And actually with the neighborhood, they're very welcoming to these guys being there to help with some of the things they're going through. Several of the pastors are involved that are now coming down and helping teach some of the classes. We actually presented this to Community in Action, and Pastor Baldwin, or Pastor Terrence Bishop, they were presenting it to the Ministerial Alliance there. And so it's stuff that the community has known that's coming, that, we're not trying to bring in something that's gonna disrupt, and I get it. Believe me, my 5-year-old daughter works with these guys, she's around these guys, but the mindset thinking, oh, there's an inmate coming into my community, they're already there. But these are the most productive and safe people because they want to change. They want to be different. That's why they're going through the application interview process to get the help that they need to turn key. And so, part of the fear is taken away when these are the ones that they have a curfew. They have to be in the certain time. They have to check in with the mentors. They have to go to all the classes that they have to stay involved in. And so, we stay on top of where the women are and what they're doing pretty much the whole time. And so I think part of the thing is we're already moving a transitional housing in there. The reason we're coming to you is because we're wanting to increase the number from what we can now to what it can be. And so, I would love to talk to the community and try to answer any questions that they have. But some of our biggest supporters are the ones that came the first time that looked at the program and how it's impacted the community for the long term. And so, I say that, we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into the neighborhood because we care about what the neighborhood looks like and where the neighborhood's going. I want to see the Southern Heights neighborhood flourish. I love the people in there dearly. I know so many of them because I've talked to a lot of them. And I wish I would have known, because they would have came and they would have talked about some of that. And so, I hope that answers some of you guys' fears. But these are women that need help, and they can live anywhere they want. They can, and most of them live in some of the Southern Heights neighborhood. But this offers them a second chance to help them get their feet in the right direction. So any questions? Yes, sir.
I really like your high success rate for God Ministries. That's been great. People out here, though, they had a question about violent and nonviolent. If you could touch on that, and maybe touch on the lady said something about parking and trash.
Okay, so violent and nonviolent offenders, we don't even interview. That's not even going to potentially come into our program. Sex offenders, we don't even interview sex offenders. First off, we're not even zoned for that. So those are two things that are eliminated right off the top. As far as trash, so the New View apartment complex, before we moved our main campus down on the north end or south end of Southern Heights, it was one of the trashiest areas because of the apartment complex. It was trash literally left everywhere. But part of what we do as we work with the kids that are in our after-school programs and the guys that are in the program, it's keeping the neighborhood constantly clean. And I've got trash cans out there where the guys can constantly go around, pick up trash, pick up your neighbor's trash. If you see a lady down the street that needs some help, go pick up their trash. That's something we constantly encourage. Now, as far as parking, our goal is, and I've talked with the lady that owns the land right east of this facility, is to potentially put in a parking lot that would be able to be used for not only the housing, but for the playground where people come down and play. And there's several Southern Heights football teams that play over in a banquet a lot, where if you drive down there during practice, the cars are parked and you can't hardly drive through there, which is potentially unsafe for kids. So our goal is to go ahead and continue to work with putting maybe a parking lot in there for the community to make it real nice for people to be able to park when they're going to the park or different areas.
One of the other concerns that I heard raised was, what would you say to the resident that says that it's going to significantly affect the property value being right across the street?
Great question. So as soon as I put up the Forgotten Ministries main center, which is on 1714 South 4th, the lady across the street that was wanting $2,000 for her 10 lots jumped that to $12,000. And she got $12,000 for it. The guy across the street from me that we got our garden in that wanted $3,000 for his land wanted $10,000. And so I'd say it's actually quite the opposite when you invest $1 million in a building, which was done through donations. I think it has significantly changed the value. I know we bought two of the houses on the backside that once we bought the facility, the guy raised it 25 grand. And so I think that it's actually really increasing the property value of everywhere I've seen because of the amount of money that's being invested in the neighborhood.
Present zoning, how many individuals can you house?
Current zoning is R2, that's single family.
So you mentioned you're in the process of renovation. How many individuals can you legally with the present
I
zoning?
think it's 5 or 6, if I remember right, what we figured up one day.
Well, there is no density calculation in the R7 zoning. So I don't.
But it's R2 presently?
It's R2 now.
So how many can?
One single family.
One single family.
One single family in R2. If the zoning is approved R7, he can have a boarding house there. There are no density for the boarding house in the R7. So it'll be limited by how many rooms he can put in that facility.
What are the other zoning options? I know it's not before us this evening. Are there other zoning options that are intermediary?
This is multifamily, so the only zoning option is R7.
Going back to the security, you mentioned cameras and having house moms and that sort of thing. Was your expectation to include any kind of fencing?
I'm totally open for that. I mean, if that's something that would help, obviously, the community feel, better. I think it, sometimes tends to make it look a little more institutional. That's why we're investing the money to make it look really good on the outside with flowers and everything. I mean, the thing is when they live in a, when they're in prison, they work their way up the system to where they live on a yard that's like, out of ECC. It has no fence around it, and but they're not allowed to leave the yard. They're all free. None of them are in prison. And so they're not really restricted to any type of, they can go wherever they want. Now the cameras, we do that because I want the neighborhood to feel safer. That just is so we know what's going on and keeps everyone safe. Our house mom will live there on site. She checks the curfew to make sure the ladies are coming in when they're supposed to. She has the alcohol and drug test, so if we have suspicion anything, we do those instantly, and that's an immediate termination if we catch that. And so the program is designed so that the first couple months is extremely there's a lot of accountability in that process. They're not allowed to meet with their boyfriends, they're not allowed to meet with their family until they get to a certain point, and then we start to open up things through them filling out forms where, hey, I'm going to go with my family this weekend, where are you going to go, so we can check in with you if something's going on. So it's a gradual kind of helping them get on their feet, start walking so that they're able to kind of go on their own. Now, as far as any other security, I'm open for anything. Like I said, the fence, I'm totally good with that. That's something we need to do.
You also mentioned at the other facility, you did have one person wash out. Could you speak a little bit towards the nature of that?
Yeah, so we've had one guy that actually completed the program, and he got back on meth. I don't know how else to say it. And actually he was one of the most promising that I would have never backslidden, but he just got around the wrong guy one day when he was already out of the program. He wasn't even in it still. And he got back on it, and he's back in jail. And so, obviously I'd love to tell you we're 100%, but unfortunately we're not. But I do know that those that have made it through it, they've beat the 97 percentile. They're not going back to prison because they do have the things in life that I feel like that they need to help transition into, having a successful life.
You mentioned there was 20 that's completed the program?
Yep.
How many started that didn't complete?
We've had about 10-ish, somewhere I have to get the numbers, about 10 that have dropped out. And that was because they broke rules, or maybe they beat curfew, or they did come into curfew once or twice. We warned them, we sat down and talked with them, and then his heart wasn't in it. So the director, he's been really good about spotting those things early on and asking the guys just to move on. And the guys that have dropped out, believe it or not, all of them but one that I know of is back in prison. So it goes to say, if someone has a heart to change, they have to have the heart to change. The program's are just to help to guide them. And so, we've had a lot of ladies from the neighborhood actually come down the center saying they're excited about it because they want to be in the program. And some of those are ladies that are living on the streets, not necessarily they're living in a home, but some are living in abandoned homes. And so, we've seen a lot of success with guys getting off the streets through the program too. So,
Let me segue off that question. Comments were made about where do the clients come from. Is there a larger percentage of the people that are going to be from our Enid community, or are they just kind of randomly coming in?
It will largely be women coming from the Enid community. We mainly take guys, I think we've only maybe got 2 guys from outside the city influence. I think one was from the Woodward area and one was from down the city. But we mainly get them from like the facility over at Meadow Lake. What is it called? The Catalyst Center. Ladies that are going through the Catalyst program. They're still incarcerated, but once they get out, they're already working in our community. All have jobs when they're going through Catalyst, and so now they just need a place to live. So while they save up enough money to get on their feet. As far as the building is concerned, the lady that ran the church, her and her husband, Linda's her name. Her husband passed away a year ago or so, and she caught wind of what Forgotten Ministries was doing through our kids program, and she came and gifted the buildings to us. She actually gave them to us because she loved what the project was going to do to help people, that was the reason she wanted her church to move on, to be able to help the next one. Now, the church building itself, which we'll be addressing probably at a further date, but it will still be open for a church, the Indian Baptist Church, if they get a congregation back, that'll still be open for them to be able to meet in there. And it'll also be used as an intake center for Pacific Island people. So that when they come to this community, they'll be able to have a place to come and have an intake process, which helps them to get English as a second language. It helps them to get money management, helps them to learn how to live in an apartment different than the culture they came in. And so the whole campus is going to be a means to help several different types of people that are coming through difficult times.
One of the comments that was made, and I think it's worth noting, is the mental health of some of the people in the program. That's obviously
absolutely
becoming something that is a part of our culture, especially here in Oklahoma. So what are we doing to address that?
So again, it's an interview process and an application, and our director, I tell him this all the time, the safety of the community is our priority. You know, we have to make sure that we're not bringing anyone that I wouldn't want my kids living around. And so we live by that mentality, no matter who we're interviewing, no matter who we're taking in, and we have turned people away that are not mentally stable enough to be in a program. Now, there's other facilities that we can direct them to, because we're not able to take care of addicts. We're just not. We're not a facility that is designed to take care of people that are really hardcore addicts. So we direct people like that towards a program in Fairview called TLC. And there's another program we're trying to get connected with in Tulsa, so that ladies that come in that have a constant cycle of meth addictions or alcoholism, that we can help them get on their feet through a different facility. Because it takes a facility that's more of a lockdown, where you're 3 or 4 people in their life, making sure they're not going anywhere they're not supposed to be, and that they're not getting back on drugs. And so we're really dealing with a pretty mild person, and I guess in the case of it, that, you know, they've been in jail or they've been on the streets, they're not addicts, they just need some time to get on their feet, to get a job so they have enough money to get an apartment and get going.
Is there space for any of us to say anything? This is the longest I've ever heard anybody be able to speak your issue, but can I have some more time? I don't want to argue, I just want to talk so fast.
Go ahead, Chris.
Mr. Chairman, I have to correct myself to Commissioner Trojan. He asked how many people there could. I checked the definition here. For boarding house, the maximum number is 12. I did not realize that until I looked it up. So that would be the maximum. Definition of boarding is three or more, but not more than 12. So the maximum we could have here would be 12.
Make another inquiry. This is a church facility at the present time. I actually drove by. It's zoned R1. How did a church
It's
end up?
zoned R2.
Oh, R2, okay.
Yeah, and churches are good in all of our residential neighborhoods.
Can we address her question really quick?
Okay, we don't typically do this, but I think we're all very interested in getting this settled, and I'll allow you a few minutes. I'll say 3 or 4 minutes each, if you would, please.
To him. But not once did he say how this was going to benefit our community. Not once did he say that he would put it in one of your backyards. Not once did he say, why did he choose Southern Heights to put this in? He said his child mingles with these people. Well, let's put it in his backyard. Let's put it in his community. Let's put it there. What's wrong with that? Let's rezone wherever area or whatever district you guys live in. Let's put it in there. You don't say who's benefiting out of all of this. Is this a nonprofit organization? What is it? Not once are you saying how we are going to financially benefit by making our community grow. Not once did he say that. I'm in New View Apartments all the time because I have family down there. Trash? I don't think so. They keep it up down there. He didn't just come through here and create something that has already been done. Why? Because the city of Enid don't allow you to trash out down there. You guys know that as well as I do. You know why I know? I own property. You don't waste no time sending me no letter. So there's no trash in the Community Heights Society. So I don't know where that came from. Cameras and house mamas, that's a bunch of hogwash. That is not going to stop what is going to take place down there. I have grandchildren, and these people have children, and I want to see something better come through that community. community, and I'm one of them that want to put it there. I want to see Enid, see black entrepreneurships come up, money come into this town. These people are the brokest damn people I ever seen. I want to see our city grow. I love my city. Do you hear me? I love all about it. All this old stuff has to stop, you guys. We have to make change here. That's all I got to say. But, you know, he's not bringing something through here that is brand new. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't know your name, but put it in your backyard.
Really don't have any problem putting it in my backyard.
Let's not argue, you guys. We're still doing it. I just came to speak on 2 points. One is I don't want it to think that all the ministers in Southern Heights is for that. They have an alliance, and I would bet you on that alliance only one of the ministers stays in the Southern Heights community. So I don't want you to leave here thinking the ministers in Southern Heights is saying do this. And I have lots of honor for all of the ministers in this city and who are working in the various groups, but they do not live in Southern Heights. And the other is, I'll just give you my own personal experience. I told you I stayed at 401 East Indiana, and we have ministers and people who try to rent their property, and I can look at this house that's almost as close to me as me looking at you guys. And he had to go through a 3-month process to try to get somebody out of his house that he had given a second chance. And they had been, whatever their problem was for being in jail and coming out and trying to make their stride to live alone. And they ended up in their facility, his facility, with, when this person said, I'm not doing well here by myself, so I'm going back somewhere that will help me get my drugs under control. But she left a whole house full and a dog, giant dog at that, in that house. That's my neighbor that I can look at and see their faces just like I see you. So I'm just telling you some reality for real truth. I'm sure you can check the records and see his eviction notice that it took him 3 months to get out the remnants of the person that he tried to help. And so that's what we don't want in our neighborhood, is the people who cannot make it. And then they take down what we have. And then I had to live with the cars that was coming and the other ancillary people that came to that house in my neighborhood right across the street from me. And so that's why I speak out, that I want to maintain home ownership in there. I'm not even for high rentals. I just want home maintenance in there, which that community was set up on that, and it's very few renters. It's mostly homeowners, and I don't want you to forget that. And so the safety of that still remains important to me, and the home ability and being able to mark my property. And I have to tell you today, written in my appraisal, it already says, don't give them no more money off in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Can I address one thing? Do any of you shop at the Dollar General at 3rd and Garriott? I'm the one that recommended Dollar General to put that there. And I say that because, for me personally, I see value in the Southern Heights neighborhood. We discuss it in real estate that it is potentially an area that will eventually have some infill development. What will happen in 10 or 15 years, I don't know. What I'm looking at is we've got a gentleman here today that is trying to do something to take some buildings that were not so great and trying to do something with them. Is it the right thing? I don't know. I mean, anybody else can comment if they like.
I have a question for Chris. I am familiar with a few other programs that have been similar to this, like Agnes House, but that haven't lasted. They were a standalone operation from the sounds of it. Are you familiar with when they did shut down? Was that something that was pushed by the city because of issues, or was that just the program not maintaining support?
Not aware of the program, so I can't speak to it.
That's my understanding. Okay.
People are just like me, and I run a museum. no money down there. You don't make it available on private donation to grant, CDBG, whatever you call it. You don't put no money down in there.
We're kind of more mechanical on what we're voting. That would be probably something to discuss with city council. Let me ask Chris, are there any code guidelines as far as having this facility within X amount of feet to a daycare, school, church?
None that I'm aware of, no.
And it's because it's not really a treatment facility, it's
housing.
It's housing.
Yes, sir.
He could easily buy buy New View Apartments and do the same thing.
Correct.
Was the Oasis facility already zoned R7, or did that have to go through this process?
We're going to go through a PUD on that land down there. We brought the facilities into the land. It was some military-style bunkhouses that we brought in and set up for the program.
I'd like to say that the neighborhood, in my opinion, is actually R1, even though it's not labeled as R1 or R2. And if you look at the neighborhood, it's actually, you would think it's an R1. So if you want to go from R1, in my view, to R7, that's not consistent.
Jeremiah, could I ask, what, if this is not approved, and we're only making a recommendation that goes to the city council, what use would be made of this property by your ministry? You're doing great work with a lot of people.
I don't know.
Need you to come to the podium.
I don't know. We'd have to think about that. I mean, the challenge for me is when I know the women and how they're living their lives outside of a program, and that's really challenging. It's the ugly truth that a lot of us don't want to see, and prostitution is a big part of that. And so it's hard for me to see why we could buy anything in town and house women in, and why would we want to use it for anything else? I guess I don't know what we'd use it for, to be honest. The program's only 3 blocks down the street that house men, and I can house more men, double the men, than I can women. And we haven't had any issues thus far with the men. It's only been something that's added to the neighborhood. I mean, I actually took the men and a bunch of kids down to the museum and helped renovate her museum. We worked on our museum. The guys in the program and kids from the neighborhood, or kids from churches here in town, went to the museum and helped work on it. So, I mean, my heart is very proactive in building this community up, and I would never bring anything in that I think that would damage that. And so I believe me, if it wasn't close to everything else, I mean, we just invested in a large community garden down there that's going to give the ladies something to do, so that as we're raising vegetables, we're able to take that into the neighborhood and give out free vegetables for people. And so, I mean, everything's built around this facility, or this campus, is to get into Southern Heights neighborhood and help those that, are just need basic needs. Well, we've been in the Southern Heights neighborhood for almost 7 years doing ministry. And so, we've built our facilities all in that area. We invested first off in the New View apartment complex. It was an area in town that had a lot of struggling families, a lot of struggling kids that were going through sexual abuse, and a lot of drug issues that were involved. I mean, there's one drug house right across the street, there's another 2 down the street. And so we asked the Lord to set us up in an area that we would be able to make the biggest impact. And so the land came available across the street, which is why we built right across from the New View apartment complex. And for the last 3 years, it's just kind of expanded as needs have come available. It was the same thing we sent out to all the neighborhoods.
Wait. We're not going to have a discussion between people here.
Sorry.
We've gone farther in this meeting than we typically go. As the Vice Chairman mentioned, this is basically a mechanical thing, and what we do is we ensure that the zoning is correct for the area, which includes the sewer, the water, and the ground around it. Now, I know everyone here has more concerns. We do not approve this. All we do is recommend it to the mayor and board of commissioners. From what we've talked about, like I say, we've gone farther than we normally go, but we wanted to see how everybody feels about this.
I think I've even made the comment that from where I sit, Mr. Chairman, I really don't even want to know the end use. I want to know the technicals. Does it fit water, sewer from that standpoint?
So I would say one of the applicable issues is that one of the issues that was raised is that this is going to be something that is Zone 7 in the middle of a Zone 2 residential area. So I think that that the discussion about what it's actually going to be used for is very much applicable.
Okay.
And we do have other R7 that is near R1 and R2 and other parts of Enid. And like I said, it's not that we don't care about what you're saying. We can, I mean, I can see your point. Maybe it's something where we need to let the city council look at.
Well, at this point, I want to call for a vote. And I'd like to, if we have a motion, please, to either approve or deny the R7. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a motion to deny? Okay, is it going to die for lack of a motion?
I'm going to make a motion to approve. I'd like to see this go to the city council and let them make further determination on it. And because I feel they can address the issues that the community has better than we can. On the surface, I don't see any reason as far as the infrastructure of the roadway, so I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All those, let's see. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Did you get that?
And
Yes, we did.
Chris, just as a point of order, can you speak to the normal timeline of when this would go before the city so that everybody that's interested would be
Yes,
available?
it'll be September
Address them?
6th. Be in this room at 6:30 PM. It's on the notice that went to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a
City of
vote.
Enid, just so they know, they know that the city of Enid will have the final say-so.
City commissioners.
As far as,
Correct.
they can change the zoning.
Okay, I have approval by a vote of, what was it, 6-2?
7-2.
7-2. That motion passes. Okay, take a breath, and we'll go on to item 2. Okay, the next item is a use by review. I'll let those of you want to step out or leave. I'll wait for just a second before we start our next one. Okay, use by review. Conduct a hearing and consider a use by review for a modular home for residents located at 4302 East Market Avenue, which is also known as lots 21 through 22, Block 1, Rockdale subdivision, southwest quarter of 1122-6. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In I-3, the code does not allow residential, but it does allow for the Planning Commission to consider residential use under a use by review. And we do use by reviews quite often in front of this body for many different things. The neighborhood that we're looking at is you got 42nd right here on the left. You got Market on the south. This is all developed residential all the way. Here's the commercial or industrial piece. All of this here is residential. Use, why it's zoned industrial, I-3, I cannot tell you. The current owner, that's why they're requesting a use by review to put a modular home in there is because the actual look and feel and how that neighborhood is being used right now is residential. Everything's there to support the request. Staff's recommendation is to approve. Any questions?
Okay.
So just so I can clarify, he wants to maintain the industrial label on it, but to be able to put a modular home there?
Yes, this is not a rezoning.
Is it currently being used in an industrial, for industrial use?
No, residential.
There's lots of houses down 42nd and on Market. Kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, so.
Is there a price or functionality difference that would make it worth keeping industrial instead of going ahead and granting the rezoning?
None that I know, Commissioner. You know, at best, if somebody came in with an industrial use, acquired all the property, redeveloped it, that would make sense. But you can see they are small parcels, and that has been used as residential. So I don't know the history of why it was zoned I3. Probably the vision was at some point that would become industrial, but has not to this date. It remains residential in character.
And, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, what is the actual distance from that to the industrial park?
This distance right here, Commissioner? Is that what you're
Well,
asking?
the large industrial park, like not just this commercial unit, but we have an industrial park.
It's on the, it's.
I'd be out
There's still a couple
54
miles,
more.
right?
We're 2 or 3 miles.
Right.
We're a mile further east, and then a mile up off of 412.
Right.
So, yeah, we're quite a ways away
Okay.
from any real industrial, and a modular home. I mean, that could be moved elsewhere if somebody ever wanted to develop that, so.
Okay, are there any other questions? I have a motion. Have a motion to have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is unanimous. Next item is lot split. Consider a lot split for Nicholas Investment Company located at 1306 St. Andrew Court, which is also known as Lot 4, Block 4, Pheasant Run Golf Community. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the graphic. This is the lot that's being split off right here. This lot is being split. This piece is being added to this existing home. So if you approve it, this lot is getting that much bigger. All of the infrastructure in place, road, water, and sewer, recommended for approval.
Any questions on that? Have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries. Next one is consider a lot split for Nicholas Investment Company located at 1304 St. Andrew Court, which is also known as Lot 5, Block 4, Pheasant Run Golf Community.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same thing that we discussed in the previous item. This is the lot. Here's the section that's being split off, and it's being added to this home. All road, water, and sewer are in place, recommended for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed? And that motion carries. And the last of those three is to consider a lot split for Nicholas Investment Company located at 1304 St. Andrew Court, which is also known as Lot 4 and 5, Block 4, Pheasant Run Community.
Thank you. So what we've done is we've had two lots. This was one. We split a piece to put here, so it left this balance left over. We had this lot, we split it off and added this chunk to here. So we have the remnants, creates the third lot. It's recommended for approval.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries. And the last item is an easement. Consider a request to close a portion of a stormwater detention easement, Lot 4, Block 13, plat of Blocks 12 and 13, Willow West, 4th Edition. Robert.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Yeah, this is a request to close an easement. It's actually a stormwater detention easement. And, yep, it's Willow 4th Edition. We have here a map here. It shows the property addition, and it shows we show in green is the stormwater detention easement. When the subdivision was platted, there was a requirement to provide to offset their impact. It does have a stormwater detention, on-site detention facility on that site. The owner, Klassen, has developed his house on the site and actually has encroached into the easement and is looking to place facilities on that encroachment. That is a concern, so we required the developer to go in and reanalyze the stormwater detention facility to make sure it still had capacity to work as intended. That was done by the original designer, Bergman Engineering. So with this encroachment, there is still capacity to provide adequate detention, stormwater detention, and mitigate the impacts. So they have made this request to close that portion of the easement that the encroachment is on, and it's outlined on the drawing here with the dashed line outlines the area. It's petitioned for closing. This action would, upon approval, would close that part of the easement and would allow the developer or the owner to make use of that for his facilities, basically
There's
his
not
pool
any
house.
other utilities in that easement right there? That
No,
35 feet is?
there are not.
And to be clear, it just closes that strip to complete the pool house. It's not the entire green section.
Correct, just this area closed in red on this drawing, which is
It's like 14 feet wide.
Right,
Oh,
right.
okay.
detailed by this
It's
dashed
not the
area.
whole corner.
Chances are water's up and he's in trouble anyway.
Yeah, that's why we have the legal description there to
Yes.
precisely cover.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
And that being our last item, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.